this is Lizzie, still snowed in a hotel room, so just going to start bashing off videos of things that I've watched recently and been into recently that are entertaining me. I do apologise if it looks like I'm not staring at the camera. It's currently on a ledge in front of the window with the snow falling behind it, and I'm getting a little bit distracted by the snow. It is still quite lovely to see snow actually falling and settling in England, because normally we just kind of get sleet and grey. So recently, one of the TV shows that I fell in love with was the new Star Trek Discovery. Again, this is one of those things where I've wanted beautiful, like dynamically created worlds and visually stunning pieces, but with interesting characters, because Star Trek Discovery really landed for me. I know others may have like ups and downs with it, but it really did land for me. I think one of the things that I've been finding hard with sci-fi is because I've really got into Mass Effect over the year, and I got really obsessed with it, and I played all 4 games quite obsessively and to completion, and was what I talked about for a bit. So every time I go and see anything sci-fi, like the film Valerian and like the new Star Trek, everything just looks like Mass Effect to me. And I'm just like, ooh, that looks like that bit from Mass Effect. I was like, no, Mass Effect, like, while being an old game, Star Trek came first, and the visuals and the world building came first. Mass Effect looks like Star Trek, but I think it's the spacesuits. Whenever they go outside, it just really looks like Mass Effect armour to me. But the new Star Trek Discovery was really good. It is very visually appealing. It managed to make the grandeur of space look so big, intimidating, beautiful, unnatural, magical. It's everything you want to see when you look at a space setup. It filled it with some really interesting characters. What I like about it is there's very much grey area characters. The whole show is not black and white. I like the idea of this kind of Cold War with the Klingons. It starts off with kind of like a bang, and then you're like, oh my goodness, how is this going to kind of go with like this Klingon war? And then you realise that there's more to it than that, and because of the war, they're now on this spaceship called Discovery. That was a science vehicle, but that's been commandeered by a military captain because they're at war, and they're now having to try and get this science technology turned into more of a military technology so that they can win the war, and all the different dilemmas that come up with when do you use science and when do you use it for military, and should you be using like advancements that are meant to help like the various species that inhabit the Star Trek universe? Should you be taking these technologies and these breakthroughs and turning them into military weapons? And the conflicts come from the science aspect of it, and all the science officers that were like, they all signed on to Star Trek to work on these pieces of technology, and some of them weren't even Starfleet officers, they were scientists, but they have now all been kind of enlisted and expected to work on a military vehicle run by a very military-minded like captain. And sometimes you feel like, oh, his decisions are so based on like, let's win this war, but what about like the moral implications? But you realise that even he is like grey area. You can't totally hate him, but like, and it's so many interesting dynamics, and it's got some great characters. My favourite being Stamos. I absolutely adore him. He's our engineer, and I love him. And I love Michael. I think she's a really interesting character to go into it. It's interesting not following a captain and following this character that is like Sarek's adopted daughter that he raised to prove that like humans could have some of the capacity that Vulcans have for intelligence, for logic, for strategics, but she still has her human emotions. She never quite dealt with them because she was raised on Vulcan to be Spock's sister, and to but she does have this connection with Sarek that's also quite real, and it's kind of like the father-daughter relationship, but in a very restrained way, and she's coming to terms with humanity versus how she was raised and the way her mind works and how that causes conflict. It's just a really good show. It's got good characters. It does good representations on things like gender. There's even an episode there's an actual disabled actress playing a disabled character. I mean, it's only a brief moment, but there's little moments of detail. We've got gay characters for the first real time in Star Trek, and I adore them. It deals with some really like harsh issues, like Tyler, who's one of my favourite characters, and his PTSD and being like a survivor of rape is such an interesting, because you never get like male victim storylines in TV shows, and his PTSD storyline is quite harsh but quite like interestingly tackled, and he's just such a good pure soul, so I hope nothing bad happens to him. The mid-season cliffhanger is one of the most like upsetting, like, no cliffhangers of like TV, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, I need January to come quickly because I need to know what's going to happen, because so many like death flags and like, oh my god, what's happening with some of my favourite characters. But I think they made a good Star Trek. It's different because it's not out exploring galaxies, and yet they still managed to have that with trying to like make contact with certain new races in the hopes that like they can win this war. But it's definitely a different type of Star Trek and different mind and a different set of conflicts. But it's really intriguing. It's a very good show. I'm absolutely loving it. I can't wait. It's well acted, visually beautiful, good storylines. It asks questions and it's breaking some boundaries with what it's portraying, which is what you really want from Star Trek. It's meant to be like modern and amazing and tackling really like cutting edge issues, but setting it in a world that is more open-minded and futuristic, and just that it's just a good show, and I'm really loving it. But that's me for now. So this is Lizzie signing out. Hopefully not stuck in this hotel room for too much longer. You can follow me on my Tumblr blog and also the Lone Dreamer Yowie Twitter account.